Hello, I'm Caroline, welcome to my channel. Today's video I'm going to read a part of this book, over 1000 fantastic history facts, and the part I'm going to read is Magnificent Mummies, and I hope you enjoy. The mummy of Pharaoh Ramses II was found in 1871. It had been buried in a tomb, but had been moved to prevent robbers finding it. Ramses II had bad teeth, probably caused by eating gritty bread. He was in his 80s when he died and had arthritis, which would have given him painful joints. In 1976, his mummy was sent to France for treatment to stop mould from damaging it. Mummy 1770 is in the Manchester Museum in the UK. This is a mummy of a teenage girl whose real name is not known. Her lower legs and feet are missing, and the mummy makers had given her false ones to make her appear whole. It's a mystery what happened to her, but she might have been bitten by a crocodile or even a hippo as she paddled in the River Nile 3,000 years ago. The mummy of Ramses II. Scientific studies have shown that particularly fine linen was used to stuff and bandage the body. A trapped donkey led to the discovery of thousands of mummies. It happened in 1996 when a donkey slipped into a hole at Egypt's Bahariya oasis. The owner freed it, then climbed down into an underground system of chambers lined with thousands of mummies of ordinary people. The site is called the Valley of the Golden Mummies, as many of the mummies have golden masks over their faces. They're about 2,000 years old. Jed Matisank, Jed for short, is an Egyptian mummy in the Royal Ontario Museum, Toronto, Canada. She lived around 850 BC, and in 1977 she entered the history books as the first Egyptian mummy to have a whole-body CAT scan, computerized axial tomography. The CAT images revealed that Jed had a serious infection in her jaw, which may have caused her death. Mummies of Peru. Mummies were made in Peru, South America, for hundreds of years. The first were made in the 1400s BC, and the last probably in the early 1500s. A body was put into a sitting position with its knees tucked under its chin. Layers of cloth were wrapped around it to make a mummy bundle. The body was preserved by the dry, cold environment. This mummy from Peru is more than 500 years old. It was covered in cloth to make a mummy bundle. In the 1500s, the mummies of Inca emperors were paraded through the streets of Cusco, Peru. People thought that by doing this, the souls of the dead were well cared for, and this helped them on their journey into the afterlife. People also believed that this practice pleased the gods, who then ensured that living people were healthy and happy. When Spaniards came to Peru in the 1500s, they destroyed thousands of Inca mummies. They got rid of 1,365 in just 4 years. The Incas sacrificed children to their gods. They hoped that in return the gods would provide rain for crops, good health, and prosperity. The children's bodies were left at the tops of freezing mountains, where they slowly turned into natural mummies. In 1995, the mummy of a teenage Inca girl was found. She was led to her death 500 years ago as a sacrifice to the gods. Her body was left 6,300 meters up Mount Amparo, Peru, with offerings of cloth, food, gold and silver. The icy conditions preserved her body. Inca children stand in front of a priest as they prepare to be sacrificed to the gods in a religious ceremony. Mummies from Asia. More than 2,500 years ago, the Pazyryk people of Siberia, Russia, buried their leaders in the region's frozen ground. In 1993, a Pazyryk burial mound was dug up, and inside was the frozen mummy of the Ice Princess. She was dressed in clothes made from silk and wool, and she wore a pair of riding boots. When her body thawed from the ice, pictures of deer were found tattooed on her skin. The Pazyryk people tattooed images of snow leopards, eagles, and reindeer onto their bodies. Those found on the Ice Princess may have been a mark of her importance or rank. Lady Cheng is one of the world's best preserved mummies. She was found in China and is 2,100 years old. Her body had been placed inside a coffin filled with a strange liquid that contained mercury, a silvery liquid metal also known as quicksilver. The coffin was sealed and placed inside another, and then another. The coffins were buried under a mound of charcoal and clay, and this watertight, airtight tomb, her body was preserved. This artist's impression shows Lady Cheng may have looked when she was alive more than 2,000 years ago. Mummies have been found in China's Taklamakan Desert. It hardly rains here, and the salty sand means that human bodies do not rot. It was a surprise when mummies were found in this remote place. They're about 3,000 years old and look Indo-European, not Chinese. It seems that long ago a group of tall, light-skinned people settled in the east, where they died and were buried. Vu Cac Minh was a Buddhist monk from Vietnam. In 1639, when he was near the end of his life, he locked himself in his room. He told his fellow monks to leave him alone for 100 days while he meditated, prayed. When this time was up, the monks found that he had died. His body was perfectly preserved and was put on view for all to see. Churchin Man was one of the many mummies found in the Taklamakan Desert. North American mummies. At 9,000 years old, Spirit Cave Man is one of the oldest mummies. The mummy was found in Spirit Cave, Nevada, USA in 1940. It was wearing a cloak of animal skins, leather moccasins on its feet, and was wrapped inside mats made of tough grass. The cool, dry air in the cave had dried the body, turning it into a natural mummy. The mummy of Spirit Cave Man, although it was discovered in 1940s, the mummy's actual age was not determined until 1994. The mummy of the North American Iceman no longer exists. It was found in 1999 in Canada. The Iceman had died in the 1400s and was preserved in a glacier. Native North Americans claimed that the man was their ancestor, so the mummy was handed to them. It was cremated and the ashes buried near where the mummy had been found. An Inuit mummy of a baby boy. He was killed so that he could stay with his mother in the afterlife. A mummy family was found on Greenland in 1972. The bodies of 6 Inuit women and 2 children had been placed on a rocky ledge in about 1475. The cold conditions had preserved them, slowly freeze-drying their bodies. The mummies of 3 British sailors lie in the frozen ground of the Arctic. They are John Torrington, John Hartnell and William Brain, who died in 1845 during a voyage from England to find a sea route across the Arctic Ocean. Their bodies were examined in 1984, and it was discovered that they had suffered from lead poisoning caused by eating contaminated food. The sailors were reburied and the Arctic began to freeze their bodies again. Elmer McCurdy was an American outlaw who became a mummy. He was shot dead in 1911 after robbing a train. His body was taken to an undertaker's where it was preserved, but no one claimed the body. Eventually, McCurdy's mummy was sold to a fairground. In 1976, a TV program was being filmed at a ghost ride, and a dummy turned out to be the mummy of Elmer McCurdy. He was finally buried in 1977. The crew of HMS Terror tried to dig their ship out of the Arctic ice. The men eventually died, and some of their remains were mummified in the freezing conditions. Studying mummies. Until recently, mummies were studied by opening them up. Unwrapping Egyptian mummies was popular in the 1800s and was often done in front of an audience. Thomas Pettigrew, 1791 to 1865, was an English surgeon who unwrapped many mummies at this time. He wrote some of the finest books about Egyptian mummies. An audience looks on as a mummy is unwrapped in the 1800s. This process destroyed lots of historical evidence. There is no need to open up mummies today. Instead, mummies are studied by taking X-rays of bones, while scans reveal soft tissue in great detail. Mummies can even be tested to work out which families they came from. A Polish scientist prepares a 3,000-year-old Egyptian mummy for an X-ray. French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte was fascinated by mummies. After defeating the British in 1798, Napoleon and his troops became stranded in Egypt. With Napoleon were 150 scientists who began to study Egypt and its mummies. When Napoleon left Egypt in 1799, he left behind a team of historians and scientists to study Egypt for him. The X-ray of a mummy's skull reveals that a fractured skull was the cause of death. We can learn about the diseases and injuries people suffered by studying mummies. Egyptian mummies have been studied the most. We can tell they had problems with their health. Gritty bread damaged their teeth. Parasites or worms entered their bodies when they drank polluted water. Insect bites caused fevers, and hard manual work led to problems with their joints and bones. Animal mummies. Animals were mummified in ancient Egypt too. Birds and fish were mummified as food for a dead person in the next life. Pet cats, dogs and monkeys became mummies so they could keep their dead owners company. Some bulls were believed to be holy, as it was thought the spirits of the gods lived inside them. When they died, the bulls were mummified and buried in an underground tomb. Fur is still visible around the feet of Dima, the baby mammoth. Crocodiles were sacred to the Egyptians' god Sobek. They were probably mummified in the same way as humans and then wrapped up. A baby mammoth was found in the frozen ground of Siberia in 1977. Many of these ancient elephant-like animals have been found in this part of Russia. What made this one special was the near-perfect state of its body. The animal was about a year old when it died and was named Dima, after a stream close to where it was discovered. The world's oldest mummy is a dinosaur. It is the fossil of Edmontosaurus, which was found in Wyoming, USA in 1908. This dinosaur died 65 million years ago, but instead of becoming a skeleton, its body was baked dry by the sun. When US fossil hunter Charles Sternberg discovered it, the skin and insides had been fossilized as well as the bones. This frog was naturally mummified in 2006 when it died in a plant pot. The sun baked it dry. Cats have been made into mummies for thousands of years. In ancient Egypt, cats were linked to the goddess Bastet. They were bred to be killed as religious offerings at temples. Cat mummies are sometimes found behind the walls of old houses in Europe. It was believed a cat could bring good fortune, so a cat's body was sometimes walled up, after which it dried out until it was a natural mummy. This mummified cat was found in 1971 in Sudbury, Suffolk, UK. It had been walled up in an old mill to protect from harm. And that's where I'm going to stop the video, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you join me again soon for another video. Thank you for watching. Bye.